Hello there and welcome back to another episode of the Long Live Rock and Roll podcast. From pioneering guitar effects like fuzz, distortion and feedback to groundbreaking studio techniques, Jimi Hendrix's Purple Haze crafted sounds that redefined the guitar's role in rock music. The song's iconic opening chord and layered production pushed boundaries, while its sci-fi-inspired lyrics and spacey feel turned it into a psychedelic anthem. Purple Haze pushed rock into experimental and heavier territory, inspiring a generation to explore bold, intense musical styles. Joining me to discuss this song is my co-host, Mr. Felipe Amarin. How you doing, man?
Doing great, man. And you?
Good, yeah, good, thank you. Another one of these song episodes. We've only done one so far, haven't we? We did American Pie by Don McLean, which definitely deserves its own episode, but we thought, why the hell not? Purple Haze deserves one as well.
Yeah, there are some songs that really stand out and really changed the course of music history.
Yeah,
this is one of them.
Very rare. Loads of albums, but one song is quite rare. Yeah. Just some terms and conditions before we crack on. If you're listening on Apple, Spotify, or Amazon, or any of your podcasting platforms, please go down, scroll down, give us a review, give us a little 5-star rating, write a little comment on what you think of the show. It's basically going to get us seen by more people, and we're going to reach a wider audience of like-minded music folk like yourself. And if you're watching on YouTube, please make sure to like and subscribe so you stay up to date with our new content and see what's coming out. So, Purple Haze, we're just going to basically talk about why it's so important and why it was such a groundbreaking song. And I think the most obvious place to start is the guitar, because obviously Mr. Hendrix was a man of the guitar, and he did a lot of stuff on the guitar that was very unconventional at the time. For example, you know, the fuzz pedal that he was using and the distorted tone he had on his guitar, along with so much feedback, isn't it, in the song?
Yeah.
Loads of moments where the guitar is actually just making a nasty noise. Now, it should be noted that these were used before, but in the way that Jimi Hendrix mastered and controlled the level of the fuzz, distortion and feedback, that was insane, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And you have the... There's a track. They do a little bit of speeding up with a track, isn't it? Guitar. There's a solo at the very end of the song, if I'm not wrong, which is basically speeding up a guitar solo. And he wanted to experiment with music and sound and production, and I think he was kind of frustrated with his early years as a musician, because he wanted to be original and do his own thing, but he was getting paid to play as a session guy, or as a hired gun for singers and other guitar players. So he wasn't really pleased with the stuff he was doing before getting the chance to do his stuff in the UK. I think that was the reason why he was brought to the UK by Chas Chandler, who was a producer who brought him to the UK, and he was trying to set Jimmy free. That was it. It was like, this guy is a genius. People don't understand. We need to put him in studio with someone who understands, what he's trying to achieve. And the band, the Jimmy. I like the band of Gypsies. I like everything Hendrix did, but I think that Jimi Hendrix Experience is such a great band as a power trio, and the bass and drums are a huge part of how weird and great this song is.
Yeah, no, I agree. As well as that, so even the other thing that Hendrix did a lot, especially in his early these albums, was experimenting with odd harmonic choices, and we hear that right from the start of Purple Haze. That chord is what we call a tritone, or what we call the devil's chord. And it's playing what you call so this is a bit of music theory. A normal power chord on a guitar is where the notes of a scale, you play the root note, you go up a string, 2 frets up, and you play the fifth of the scale, and then you up one more string, and that's the octave. So you get a really beefy power chord. And it sounds good because the root note's being emphasized in the root and the octave, and the power and the fifth just adds a bit of beef to it. If you flatten the 5, which means taking it down a semitone, you get this horrible, hellish kind of sound, which is called the devil's chord, aka a tritone. And this is not usual. This was not usual. You got it a lot in the 1900s through classical music. Some of the avant-garde stuff that was a bit out of there, Stravinsky and his Firebird Suite, that would have a lot of dissonant stuff that wasn't nice to the ear. But in pop and rock music, to have a sort of a dissonant chord was quite unheard of. So for Hendrix to open up the song with the most dissonant chord of them all, it's like, what's this guy doing?
Yeah, and he wanted to get away from the normal song structures that people were doing. So the thing is, so you have that mix of sounds or effects that he was kind of trying to create. You can't say that he was the only one experimenting with sounds and pedals and amps, because you had Clapton, you had Jeff Beck, all those guys. But back in that time, most people were still kind of tied to blues songs, structures like 12 bars or 16 bars or 8 bars.
Yeah.
Typical song structures with typical chord progressions, and let's say always melodic approaches to solos and riffs.
Yeah.
And he was kind of, let's put the dissonant sound right in the beginning.
Yeah.
It's like it's not radio friendly, and I think it is a choice of a man who wasn't afraid of being criticized, and who wasn't afraid of never making it in the music industry. He was like, I'm going to do my sound. I don't care if people like it or not.
Exactly. And I mean, the influence of what he did and how dark he went with his music is just, it can't be measured. Because 3 small years later, another band started their first ever song with the Devil's Chord. And would go on to create heavy metal. So yeah, we're going to get to that later in the episode. But yeah, I mean, for his guitaring, I mean, it's just the way that I know that the production we're going to talk about in a second, and he was able to layer multiple guitars, but his switch in the live performance and in the studio to just go between rhythm and lead guitar is unreal. Now, we've played with a few guitarists, and the gentleman we played for, Jack, he was great as well, wasn't he? Because he'd play rhythm whilst he'd sing, and then next time you know it, you're in a solo, or he's doing some motifs or melodies. Yeah. That's quite normal in the blues rock scene. But for Hendrix to do it mid-60s, on his own, in a power trio with no secondary guitar backing him up. There's moments I've seen live on stage where he plays a chord, the chord rings out, or he's got like a harmonic, so the note rings, and he goes up and does a little twiddle, and comes back and does this rhythmic thing, and then goes up and does something else solo-y. He was just a master craftsman.
Yeah, it's up and down the guitar neck all the time, and it's on the fretboard, and up and down the fretboard, like it's like any part of the guitar is familiar to him. He could use the whole instrument and all the available effects at the time with such a fluency that hasn't been seen before, I think.
And because he famously turns his guitar around so it flips over, so normal chords were not normal for him. Because a normal chord, you have your nice, you got your, as I explained earlier, it makes sense in a normal guitar. I'm not going to try and explain it over this podcast, but it works for the fingers. So when you flip the guitar over, it doesn't work as well. So
the design of the guitar wasn't for a left-handed guitar player. No.
He had to restructure his way of thinking about the instrument, which I think is also really interesting. And because of that, you got a lot of unconventional chord voicings, which were just not normal for rock and blues at that time.
Yeah.
Go on. Did you want to say something?
No, I think there's something about that. It's like, I think his personality came through, the music. It's some people, they can like create a set of rules when they're writing music and just stick to it, and doesn't necessarily reflect who they are as a person. And Hendrix was a kind of over the top character. He was like, the way he dressed and the way he talked, and he was that, I don't know how to explain that. I think it's just he was so passionate about life and human connections and playing and writing and singing and everything. So
you can hear it in his music.
He's not trying to I shouldn't do this because as a matter of fact, he wrote about 10 pages of lyrics for the song, over 1,000 words. He just was doing, and that was the one point where the producer said, well, we could cut it short, but still the essence of of his creativity is there. So there's nothing in the song that is not, in my opinion, 100% original. It's one of those songs
as well. Yeah.
It's almost like you cannot compare it to anything else that has been done before,
or much that came since.
Yeah.
It's very, very special, isn't it?
Yeah.
Moving on to the studio techniques used. Now, it's not like there's a litany of them, but there are a few examples. The use of panning as well, because several times, especially at the end, I remember it's that solo part where it goes do, and it goes from the left to the right, and it's like this circling in your head, which again, man, for us nowadays is normal. For 1967, to have his voice going round from one ear down turn to the other, and then all the way back round to this one, it's crazy, isn't it? That just like and it's like you said, it's just him putting his personality into it, and maybe the producer as well.
Well, Eddie Kramer was the sound engineer, maybe producer as well for the session. I'm not quite sure, but he was called to do this recording. So remember, so the first recording Hendrix and his band did was "Hey Joe," which is a cover song. So that's them kind of, okay, we're going to break the rules, but it's not still an original song.
Yeah.
And it charted to the point that they made some money and that they could actually do a whole album after that. And so they knew that Hendrix wasn't a predictable character or a musician that you could just keep under control. So they called Eddie Kramer because he was basically, they said, I don't know who said this to him, but whoever hired him, I think was Chas Chandler, said to him, like, we know that you can create some weird sounds, and this guy's kind of crazy and he's got some weird ideas.
Yeah.
We want you to work with him. And he said that Hendrix walked into the studio and he was kind of shy. And he was like, oh, hello, how's it going? And he did a sound check. And as soon as he started playing, Eddie Kramer was like, wow, this is something else. I've never heard anything like this.
Wow. And you can hear it in the song, because then something else that you've never heard anything like happens in the studio, isn't it? But when you get those minds together, Yeah. The only other part I want to talk about, the production techniques, was the multi-tracking involved, because that was pretty innovative for the time. Yeah. And I think it's just important to note that, hold on, we'll get to it a bit when we talk about the cultural impact, but this song really did bring two worlds together: psychedelic music and rock music.
Yeah,
merged them. We know that the Beatles were playing with psychedelic music in Revolver in, is that 64? But they weren't rock songs. What's the song with the is it Tomorrow Never Comes?
Never knows.
Tomorrow Never Knows. That's not a rock song, but it is psychedelic. But in that same album, they have a rock song that's not psychedelic. Hendrix brought them together, and he married these things. And part of that was multi-tracking and being innovative with techniques. And because of that, he was able to get multiple guitar layers on top of each other, harmonize himself, make it sound beefier, give it another texture, which gives you a fuller and much more complex sound.
And you have the guitar as the main thing for real, like in a way that probably, again, hasn't happened in any other album. So the guitar is the main voice in the song, partially because he wasn't comfortable with his own vocals. Do you believe in that? It's insane. I think I love the way he sings. It's so expressive. But
so conversational. But his voice
didn't like
lovely,
his own vocals. He would always be like, "Oh, is it good enough? Should we do another take?" Whilst with the guitar, he was totally comfortable, fluent. Yeah,
brilliant. You want to talk about the lyrics?
Yeah, the lyrics, right? There's okay. How many different stories we've heard about these lyrics, right? So the common approach is common approach. So this song is just about getting high. It's just about drugs or whatever. And Hendrix never said that. Okay, yeah, he did experiment with drugs as well, but I don't think that was that has never been the main thing about his music. I might be wrong about this, but he never said it was specifically about drugs. There's a few different versions. You said something about.
I was just going to say.
Tell me your version of it, and I'll.
No. Just purely that I read that he said it's not about drugs. Purple Haze.
He literally said
it's not about drugs. Yeah, you carry on.
Well, you said he wrote he read a novel and then had the idea.
Oh yeah, so go on. He had a dream about a sci-fi novel he read, and that's all I wrote. That's all I read,
so that's the dream. Okay. So that's pretty much the same story. Because he said he had a dream that he was walking underwater. The way he's describing the feeling of that dream. So yeah, if he was on drugs before he fell asleep, we don't know. So it might have been. It's also in another interview he said it was about a woman he met and then who literally put a spell on him. So that's that. So it can be about a woman. It can be about a psychedelic trip. It can be about a dream, or all together. And I think. I don't think we need to get to a conclusion about this. I think that when you're a proper poet, and I insist on this, we talked about Hendrix before, and I think because he was such a master of his craft as a guitar player, people simply forget that he was writing amazing lyrics, and some of the best lyrics in rock music, and it's just. They're easy to memorize. They really communicate with you, and at the same time, they do not deliver the full story.
No, it leaves you on the edge, wanting more.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And it's also like, what is he going on about? It makes sense. The words make sense together. The whole concept of the lyrics it's there, but you don't know exactly what it's all about, and leaves it to your own interpretation, which I think for me, those are the best kind of lyrics, when you tell a little bit of a story, but you let people get to whatever conclusion they want to get to. And his approach to life and performance was that, because he was criticized for being like over sexual on stage with the way he was moving with the guitar. And he said, if you want to point at one thing that I'm doing and want to make the whole performance about that, okay, it's up to you. I don't care. I'm doing my thing. So he was like, this is my music. This is how I dance. This is how I sing. This is how I play. These are my lyrics. I'm doing, like, I don't care. He really didn't give a fuck about what people were saying. And I think that's amazing. And I think we need more of that in music nowadays.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's again about the lyrics. So you can see there's some verses where you actually have the reference to a woman, okay, I like this when it says, don't know if I'm coming up or down. Am I happy or in misery? Whatever it is, that girl put a spell on me. So he is talking about the girl who put a spell on him. What kind of spell? Is it literal? Is it not? And the whole confusion. And I think that confusion, am I happy or in misery? That's great, because like, how many times do we have this? Why do songs have to be about being happy or being sad?
Yeah.
How many times in our lives we have a feeling that we can't describe, like you fall in love and you don't even know if that's a good thing for you. You don't know if that's going to bring suffering. So you're like confused about that feeling.
Yeah.
Aspects
of happiness.
Aspects of happiness, aspects of sadness, and it's just it's confusion and chaos in a way.
Yeah.
I love that.
I like talking of confusion. I love, and I read a story that there's certain lyrics on there throughout rock history where they've been misinterpreted, and one of them, my dad told me that in the 70s, when Queen released A Night at the Opera, on Bohemian Rhapsody, there's the lyric that's sparing his life for his monstrosity.
Yeah.
My dad and his brother, my uncle, thought sparing his life for his pork sausages.
Pork sausages.
They said they had. They weren't messing around. They weren't. Oh, he should say pork sausages. They couldn't hear it. They didn't have the lyrics, and well, why the hell? I mean, well, listen, this song's about seeing silhouettes in a man, so why the hell not pork sausages? Yeah. So, but we have lyrics like this throughout history, and another one is in the first verse where I believe a lot of people thought he said, "Excuse me, while I kiss this guy."
I kiss this guy instead of kiss this guy.
Kiss the sky. So that's another one, and I just love this, man, because the whole song, lyrics, music, attitude. This is why the piece of art behind me, for those watching on YouTube, I love this piece of art. Might be one of my favourite pieces of musical art ever. Because, do you know what, I'm going to turn my camera off so oops, that's wrong. So those watching can see it. There we go.
That's it.
Because for me, this just exudes everything about the song.
Yeah.
Is it the smoke from smoking a spliff? Or is it a dream where there's aliens coming down and his guitar's smoking because he's playing it so well? The clouds above him, are they clouds or are they like acid bubbles because he's in a augmented sci-fi dream? I don't know, and we don't know.
It's a beautiful artwork.
I just love that this song has this mysticism, this psychedelia about it, in the lyrics, in the music, in the guitar, in the production. It's just brilliant, man, isn't it? An iconic rock song for sure.
First time I've heard that song, it really shocked me in a way. And I thought, imagine this in the 60s.
Yeah.
It's kind of shocking now.
Yeah. Still, yeah.
It's like every time I listen
later.
to what the hell? How can you start a song with that riff?
Oh, excellent. Yeah. All done with the lyrics?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, let's move on to the cultural impact.
Or never done with the lyrics.
No, Felipe's never done. Actually, before we talk about the impact of the song, I'm going to have my little say about heavy metal. Surprise, surprise. Because this song is quite often associated with the inception of heavy metal. Now, when you first, if there's any metalheads out there listening or watching, maybe you've gone through the same experience where you get into heavy metal, you hear a bunch of these new bands from the 2000s, you do a bit of research, and your world thinks that Iron Maiden and Metallica started heavy metal. That's how until you do more research, that's what you think heavy metal started with. Yeah. And then you go back and you realize, okay, Judas Priest, and then you go back and you see Black Sabbath. When you go further back than that, you have obvious songs like Helter Skelter by the Beatles, In-A-Gadda La Vida by Iron Butterfly, these pre-metal songs. Now, one that isn't included enough, in my opinion, is Purple Haze. And there's a few reasons. So on my notes, distorted, fuzzy, heavy guitars is the primary sound of Purple Haze and heavy metal. Purple Haze, the sound of his guitar was such a major departure from the cleaner tones they had in rock. I know that in the Kinks with All Day and All of the Night and what's that other one that Van Halen covered?
You Really Got Me.
You Really Got Me, that distorted guitar intro. Yeah. But then it goes on as if it's a pop song, just with a bit of distorted guitar behind it.
Especially in terms of structure and lyrics.
Exactly, right? But Purple Haze, just on the guitar for now, distorted, fuzzy, heavy. And it really opened the door for musicians to be like, oh, wow, what? This is acceptable now. Cool. Let's see where we go with this. And 3 years later, Tony Iommi on his distorted guitar playing the tritone chord. I won't say anymore. As I just said, dissonance in the opening chord, extremely similar to what Sabbath did 3 years later. The main aspect of Purple Haze is a riff. A riff.
That is, yeah, exactly.
Not a chord progression, not a melody, not a solo. A riff, which is a key part of heavy metal. Yeah. I'd argue 95% of heavy metal is riffs.
Yeah, and it's how you recognize a metal song more than lyrics and vocals. Is the opening riff normally.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And in terms of performance, his aggressive playing, the loud volume, the powerful attack on his guitar. You watch him slap that guitar sometimes, doesn't he? Yeah. He'll put his hand out to do to wave to the audience, and then he'll just smack it. But the strings don't break. I never got how that happened. Lots of feedback, and this was all a precursor to the attitude and energy of heavy metal. Just not giving a fuck and being like, I'm going to play this loud, hear my guitar. And that's it, really. Just the freedom, the volume, the distortion, the intensity that Purple Haze brought to us allowed and inspired a whole new generation of musicians to pursue sort of heavier music and a more aggressive style of rock that would then turn into heavy metal. So I just wanted a few minutes on that to say that for the metal fans out there, it's important to know that Purple Haze was a significant moment in the steps taken towards Black Sabbath doing what they did 3 years after it was released.
Definitely, it's definitely there. The
it doesn't
between this song, not between Hendrix music in general, but this song and what Black Sabbath was doing. Yeah. Only about 3 years after that?
3 years later, that's it.
Maybe 2 years before they actually record the album, they will do kind of
obvious, isn't it? Yeah. When you hear them together, you're like, oh, okay, I see.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's talk about the cultural impact of the album. So as I said earlier, it really did combine together psychedelic music and rock music, and we kind of had this new genre that emerged from here. Because only was it a year after this, Pink Floyd did their first album, or was theirs 67 as well? But anyway, do you know what I mean?
Floyd was 65. Was it 66? Well, wait a minute.
No, have I got that wrong? Let me check.
66 or 6? I don't know.
I thought it was 67, but I could be wrong. Let me check. Yeah, Piper at the Gates of Dawn, 67.
67.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. So, and that was released late 67. So, this whole
Oh, yeah.
this whole psychedelic meets rock
Psychedelic,
really
yeah.
kicked off in the late 60s, and Purple Haze was a big part of that.
Exactly. So he was a pioneer in many ways, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And you got to consider that he was attracting like some interesting characters to the audience, right? Like Eric Clapton used to come to his gigs, Paul McCartney used to come to his gigs. So it's those guys admired him. The guys that we've learned to admire as some of the best musicians in history, they were Jimi Hendrix fans.
Yeah.
And in a recent interview, Paul McCartney mentions Hendrix as his well, I don't know how recent that is, but anyway, he mentions him as his favorite guitar player of all time.
Wow, there you go. That's enough credit. As you said, yeah, this new style that Hendrix found with this song just really bridged the gap, and it opened him up to newer audiences, and it opened newer audiences and musicians up to the fact that it's kind of like, well, hold on, we can do this. We can mix these two things. We can take heavy music and mix it with psychedelic lyrics and production. Just amazing.
Yeah, and you think how big of a departure that is from Hey Joe, his first single.
Yeah.
So it's like he's done something. Yeah, the crazy guitar sounds are there. His unique vocal interpretation is there, but it's a song that was already well known, and it wasn't his own thing. So it's not too much of an innovation, right?
Yeah.
And then straight to Purple Haze, it's almost like
tips on his head.
Yeah, it's almost like, what the hell is this? And I think because he wasn't playing safe and he was told to do whatever he wanted to do, there was a big risk that he wouldn't be a commercial success. It wouldn't. He could have been a total failure because people could simply reject that kind of I don't know, that level of craziness in music. And I think the fact that he succeeded with that made a lot of musicians all over the world think, wait a minute, why do I have to stick to a formula? Why can't I just create my own way of doing things?
Yeah, perfect. Excellent. Shall we conclude with my monologue on Purple Haze?
Sir.
Excellent. Right, here we go. Purple Haze was a groundbreaking piece of music that changed rock music both musically and culturally. Masterfully using fuzz, distortion, and feedback, Hendrix created deliberate, controlled sounds that redefined the guitar's potential. The song's dissonant opening chord introduced a level of uncomfortability rare for rock, while Hendrix's unconventional chord voicings and effortless shift between rhythm and lead showed an unmatched skill on the instrument, inspiring musicians to experiment boldly with the guitar and its effects. In the studio, Hendrix's use of panning, feedback, and multi-tracking gave the song a full, complex, and spacey feel, which perfectly captured the psychedelic spirit of the 60s. Culturally, Purple Haze embodied the era's counterculture. Its dreamy sci-fi lyrics made it an anthem of perception and exploration, rather than a song about drugs. Fusing rock with psychedelic themes drew in diverse audiences and helped push rock toward a more experimental sound. As well as that, proto-metal elements would later shape the intensity and rebellious energy of heavy metal. Ultimately, Purple Haze pushed the boundaries of rock to such an extent that I don't think the lasting effect of its legacy and influence can be measured. It's undoubtedly one of the greatest pieces of guitar music, but more importantly, one of the best and most pioneering, innovative, and important rock songs.
Well said.
It's a classic, isn't it?
A classic, yeah.
Undeniable.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you for joining us, guys, on this special little... Well, I say it's special because we've only done 2 of these song episodes, but I'm sure, so I hope you guys have noticed we're putting episodes out more frequently now. We've moved to 1 a week, so there might be occasions, because, we're only human. We both have lives. We both have jobs. There might be a week where our research time is a bit limited and we might just pop on and do a song episode like we've done today. Because it's been great and I love it, man. As awesome as it is, diving into albums, sometimes just looking at one song and extrapolating all the details can be really satisfying, can't it?
Yes, exactly. I've listened to that song about 10 times today.
And I'm going to go and listen to it 10 times more afterwards, isn't it? So, excellent. As I was saying, thank you very much for joining us. If you're listening on Apple, Spotify or Amazon, please scroll down, give us a little review, give us 5 stars, write us a comment because it's going to help us fly up the chart and be seen by more people and reach a bigger audience. And if you're watching us on YouTube, please make sure to like and subscribe so that you stay up to date with new content. We'll see you very soon.
Yeah, thanks for being with us. Give us the likes and all that stuff that happens on the internet, whatever that is. And yeah, keep on rocking, everyone, and don't do anything I would do.
And as usual, guys, take care and long live rock and roll.